The first time seasickness hits, it doesn't ask for permission. One minute you're fine, joking on the mess deck, pretending the roll isn't that bad. The next, your stomach drops, your mouth fills with saliva, and the floor feels like it's quietly moving on its own schedule. Not violently, not dramatically, just enough to make your brain panic. Every sailor learns this fast. The ocean doesn't need storms to break you. A steady swell will do. And it doesn't matter how tough you are, how fit you look, or how badly you want to prove yourself. Seasickness is democratic. It hits rookies, veterans, officers, deckhands, anyone whose senses lose the argument for long enough. What separates experienced sailors from everyone else isn't immunity. It's how they respond, where they stand, what they look at, what they avoid when they ask for help, and how they stay functional even when their body is trying to shut the whole operation down. Because on a ship, feeling sick is one thing. Being useless is another. This video is about how U.S. sailors actually handle seasickness before it handles them. Seasickness doesn't start in the stomach. That's just where it ends up. The real argument begins higher, deep inside the head, where your balance system is trying to make sense of motion that refuses to behave. Inside your inner ear are tiny fluid-filled canals that detect movement and orientation. On land, they work in quiet agreement with your eyes and muscles. On a ship, that agreement collapses. Your inner ear feels the roll, pitch, and yaw. Your eyes, especially below decks, might see walls, pipes, and bunks that appear perfectly still. Your body reports that you're standing upright. The brain hates that disagreement. When it can't reconcile the inputs, it assumes something is wrong and triggers defensive responses. That response looks familiar. Yawning, that won't stop. Excess saliva, cold sweat, a tightening feeling in the gut. Then nausea, not because you ate badly, but because your nervous system thinks you might be poisoned and wants everything out. Destroyers, amphibs, and even large ships make this worse because the motion is constant and multidirectional. It isn't one clean up and down. It's a layered rhythm that keeps changing. A slow roll mixed with a sudden snap. A gentle pitch followed by a sideways shove. The brain never gets a clean pattern to lock onto. This is why sailors often feel worse below decks. There's no horizon to anchor vision. The air is warmer. Smells linger. Fluorescent lighting removes visual cues your brain relies on to judge balance. You're surrounded by straight lines that don't move while your inner ear insists you are. Up top, things change. Fresh air helps, but more importantly, the horizon gives your eyes something honest to agree with. When your eyes and inner ear finally tell the same story, the panic eases. Not instantly, but enough to keep you functional. None of this has anything to do with toughness. Marines, special operators, and seasoned sailors all get sick. The body doesn't care about rank or confidence. It only cares about sensory conflict and how long it lasts. Understanding that changes everything. It turns seasickness from a personal failure into a mechanical problem with practical solutions. And once sailors understand what's actually happening inside their heads, the next lesson comes fast. You don't beat seasickness by fighting it. You survive it by adapting to it. Sailors love to talk about sea legs, but the phrase hides what's really going on. And sea legs aren't something you earn by grit. They're your nervous system quietly rewriting its own rules. After a few days at sea, many people notice the symptoms soften. The roll that once felt violent starts to feel predictable. Walking becomes less dramatic. The nausea fades into the background. This isn't because the ocean got calmer, it's because the brain learned the ship's rhythm and stopped treating it like a threat. This process is called habituation. The brain recalibrates its expectations. Movements that once triggered alarms become normal input. The inner ear and visual system stop arguing so loudly. That's sea legs. But it doesn't happen at the same speed for everyone, Serene. Some sailors adapt in a day. Others take several days. A few struggle every time they sail, no matter how experienced they are. Stress slows the process. Fatigue makes it worse. Dehydration, hunger, strong. Smells and anxiety all lower tolerance. Stack those together, and even someone with years at sea can feel miserable. This is why commands take seasickness seriously during transits and early deployment days. A crew that's half nauseous is slower, less alert, and more prone to mistakes. Watchstanders miss details. Movements get sloppy. Small errors start compounding. Experienced sailors don't mock this. They recognize it. They steer new people toward better positions on the ship. They tell them to get air, to face the motion instead of hiding from it, to avoid staring at phones or books when the seas are confused. These aren't old sailor superstitions. They're practical ways to help the brain adapt faster. There's also a mental shift that helps. Fighting the motion makes it worse. Locking knees, tensing muscles, and bracing against every roll exhausts the body and sharpens nausea. Letting the ship move under you, bending slightly, moving deliberately, conserves energy and reduces sensory shock. Sea legs don't mean you stop noticing the motion. They mean the motion stops dominating your attention. You're still aware. You're just not overwhelmed. And here's the part nobody likes admitting. Even sailors with solid sea legs can get sick again if conditions change fast enough. Different swell patterns, sharper rolls, or long periods. Below decks can reset the problem, which is why adaptation alone isn't the whole answer. When sea legs aren't enough, sailors fall back on something more reliable than pride. A set of habits passed down quietly, watch to watch, that can keep someone operational when their body is trying to betray them. If you're enjoying how this breaks down real ship life, not the Hollywood version, hit subscribe. More stories like this are coming, straight from how things actually work at sea. Long before anyone thinks about sick bay or medication, sailors rely on a quiet, unwritten playbook. It's learned fast, usually the hard way, and passed down without ceremony. The first rule is location. Where you place your body on a ship changes everything. Motion is most violent at the extremes. Far forward, the bow rises and slams. Far aft, the ship whips side to side. Closer to the ship's center, movement is slower and more predictable. That's why experienced sailors instinctively migrate there when seas turn ugly. The second rule is vision. If it's safe, get topside. Fresh air helps, but the real benefit is the horizon. A fixed, distant reference gives the brain something stable to agree with. Staring at bulkheads, pipes, or passageways below decks does the opposite. It traps the eyes in a world that looks still while the inner ear knows it isn't. The third rule is movement. Slow beats stiff. Locking your body against the ship's motion drains energy and sharpens nausea. Seasoned sailors bend slightly, keep their center of gravity low, and move with deliberate timing. One hand for the ship, one for yourself. Sudden head snaps and rushed ladder climbs are avoided whenever possible. Then there's what not to do. Reading is a common mistake. Phones, tablets, and books pull the eyes into a static focal point that amplifies sensory conflict. Heavy, greasy meals before rough weather don't help either. Neither does skipping hydration. Dehydration thickens misery fast. Smell management matters more than people admit. Poor ventilation, fuel odors, food waste, or even cleaning chemicals can push someone over the edge. Good ships stay aggressive about airflow and cleanliness during rough transits for that reason. None of this cures seasickness. That's the wrong expectation. What it does is slow the spiral. It keeps symptoms from snowballing long enough for the brain to adapt or for the watch to end. And when those habits fail, sailors don't argue with biology. Because once nausea stops being manageable and starts threatening performance, the solution shifts from habit to medicine, and that comes with its own set of compromises. Sick bay is where pride officially loses. When seasickness reaches the point where a sailor can't stand watch, climb ladders safely, or think clearly, intervention isn't optional. It's operational. The most common preventive tool is the scopolamine patch. It's placed behind the ear and releases medication steadily over several days. The goal isn't instant relief. It's to dampen the inner ear's signals before nausea fully takes hold. Many sailors use it before rough weather is expected, not after symptoms explode. The trade-off is side effects. Dry mouth and dry eyes are common. Some people feel slightly foggy. For most, it's manageable. Antihistamines like meclizine or dimenhydrinate are another option. They can be effective, but sedation is a real concern. Drowsiness on watch is dangerous, especially on ladders in machinery spaces or during flight operations. Because of that, these meds are often used cautiously or reserved for off-watch periods. Promethazine sits at the heavy end. It works, but it hits hard. Significant drowsiness is expected. When it's given, the assumption is that the sailor will be sidelined until symptoms and sedation pass. It's relief at the cost of availability. This is the balance sick bay constantly manages. Reduce nausea without creating new risks. Keep sailors functional without pretending they're invincible. Timing matters as much as choice. Medication taken early is far more effective than medication taken once vomiting has already started. That's why experienced sailors don't wait until they're miserable. They speak up early, especially during long transits or heavy seas. Sick bay also focuses on basics: fluids, rest, cool air, monitoring. Seasickness alone usually isn't dangerous, but dehydration and exhaustion can be. The goal isn't comfort, it's recovery and return to duty as soon as it's safe. And even with medication in play, ships don't relax, because the real danger isn't nausea itself, it's what happens to a mission when too many people are fighting their own bodies at the same time. Seasickness becomes a real problem when it starts degrading the ship's ability to function. One sailor feeling rough is manageable. A third of the watch team fighting nausea is not. That's why ships treat seasickness as a readiness issue, not a comfort issue. The first layer of control is scheduling. During heavy weather, watch rotations are adjusted when possible. Critical positions stay manned by sailors least affected by motion. Less experienced or more susceptible crew may be shifted to duties where mistakes are less likely to cascade. This isn't favoritism, it's risk management. Environment control matters more than people expect. Heat and stale air amplify nausea. Good ships stay aggressive about ventilation even when weather makes it inconvenient. Trash is removed quickly. Food prep areas are kept clean. Strong chemical cleaners are avoided when seas are confused. Smell is a powerful trigger, and leadership knows it. Movement discipline tightens. Unnecessary trips through ladders and passageways are minimized. Sailors are encouraged to combine tasks instead of bouncing back and forth. Sudden vertical movement, especially climbing ladders during rolls, is a common point where nausea spikes and injuries happen. Hydration becomes non-negotiable. Even mild dehydration worsens dizziness and fatigue. Commands push fluids quietly and constantly. Not energy drinks, water and electrolyte solutions. It's boring advice because it works. There's also a social factor that experienced crews watch closely. Seasickness spreads psychologically. Seeing someone vomit can trigger others instantly. That's not weakness. It's a learned reflex tied to survival and empathy. Good leaders move affected sailors away from high-traffic areas early to break that chain. Safety briefings change tone during rough seas. They get shorter and more direct. No unnecessary standing, no crowding. Handholds are emphasized. One slip during nausea can mean a head injury, and that creates a bigger problem than a sick stomach. Most importantly, there's no shaming. Mocking seasickness kills reporting. Sailors hide symptoms, push too long, and collapse at the worst moment. Commands that treat nausea as a normal physiological response get better outcomes. People speak up earlier. Meds work better. Adaptation happens faster. The ship doesn't slow its mission because someone feels sick. It adjusts how the mission is executed so the crew stays usable. Because at sea, the real enemy isn't discomfort, it's degraded performance under pressure. And even when the ship finally steadies and the horizon stops sliding, the story often isn't over. For some sailors, the motion follows them ashore. When the sea's calm, most people expect seasickness to vanish instantly. Sometimes it does, often it doesn't. For many sailors, the first phase of recovery is simple: rehydration, cool air, sleep, letting the nervous system settle without constant motion input. Appetite returns slowly. Balance improves in steps, not all at once. Within hours, most are back to normal duties. But there's a lesser-known after effect that catches people off guard. The feeling that the ship is still moving when it isn't. A subtle sway while standing still. A sense that the ground is breathing. It's usually mild and temporary, but it can linger for hours or even days after long periods at sea. This isn't imagination. It's the same adaptation process, working in reverse. The brain adjusted to constant motion. Now it has to recalibrate again to stillness. Most sailors experience this at least once, especially after extended transits. Commands account for this. After rough passages, high-risk tasks, are eased back in. Ladder discipline stays tight. Heavy lifting waits when possible. Nobody pretends a crew snaps back to full sharpness the moment the weather clears. Sickbay continues monitoring those who needed medication. Sedation wears off at different speeds. Dry mouth and blurred vision from patches can persist briefly. Corpsmen watch for dehydration and exhaustion, which are more dangerous than nausea itself. There's also an important boundary sailors learn over time. Seasickness is common. Severe or persistent symptoms are not ignored. Ongoing vertigo, repeated vomiting, or balance problems that don't improve trigger medical evaluation. Ships are isolated environments. Small problems can grow fast if they're dismissed. Over a career, most sailors get better at managing this cycle. They recognize early signs, they prepare before rough weather, they know when to ask for help and when to ride it out. The goal isn't elimination, it's control. What stays constant is the lesson. Seasickness doesn't mean you're unfit for sea duty. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it evolved to do when inputs don't line up. The sailors who last aren't the ones who never feel sick. They're the ones who understand their bodies well enough to stay effective anyway. And out on the water, effectiveness is the only thing that matters. Out at sea, nobody earns respect by pretending they never feel sick. They earn it by staying useful anyway. If you want more real stories about how life actually works on Navy ships, hit subscribe. There's plenty more beyond the horizon.